Our text for enough for today this week has been Psalm 46. And with the time remaining, I want us to read verses 1 through 5 of Psalm 46, and I'm excited about the thought that's before us today. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. Though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, Selah. There is a river, we talked about this yesterday, the streams whereof make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. I want you to hold on to that phrase, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. So the psalmist is rejoicing in the fixed, sovereign will, plan, power, presence of God. Though the earth is temporary and can be shaken and can come undone, though this life is temporary. He's going to talk later about nations. So he talks at first about natural events, and then he's going to talk about nation events, nations coming against nations and threatening one another, wars, political powers. And don't we see this in our world? There's natural events like this virus. There are political events, geopolitical events, one nation blaming another nation, one nation siding with nations. I mean, how politics is mixing right now with this natural event is an intriguing thing to watch. If you're not finding your core trust in Jesus and in God's sovereignty like this psalm does, then these events, these moving pieces can be terribly disrupting to your emotions, to your psyche. It can actually, work you up into a panic. But listen, these pieces on this game board called planet Earth, and I don't mean to trivialize it, but on this horizontal plane of temporal existence, the pieces are moving radically. The natural pieces are moving. The geopolitical pieces are moving. But this psalm comes to us and said, but there is another world. There is an overarching purpose and plan, and there's a creator God who is high and powerful and exalted and in control. And he is unmoved, okay? He is unmoved. He is in the holy place of the tabernacle and he is the Most High. So David is foreshadowing, he's celebrating the stability of Jerusalem, but he's also foreshadowing a coming kingdom where Jerusalem will have a river, which it doesn't have right now, where Jerusalem will be absolutely secured and eternally established as the dwelling place. The word tabernacle means dwelling place. It is the technical word is the picture of a tent. The Old Testament tabernacle was a tent. Paul in the New Testament used the word tabernacle to refer to our bodies as a temporary dwelling place. Now here's what's profound. This is where I want to go today for the next few moments. God uses the word tabernacle in the Old Testament as his temporary dwelling place when he was relating to the people, his people, Israel, in the camp. What is that a picture of? His presence coming to be among men. One thing he wanted those men to always understand, those people to always understand, is that it's a temporary dwelling place, and it is not his comprehensive being. God cannot be contained in a tent, okay? So it's not that we have a small God who can be put into a tent. It is that we have a cosmic, a huge God who is manifesting his presence temporarily in this point in time, in this place called the tabernacle, okay? And the picture is not that we have a small God. The picture is that we have a present God. The picture is that we have a powerful and a loving God who wants to be with us, who condescends to us. He constrains and constricts himself into a place where he can relate to us while simultaneously never downsizing himself, never relinquishing any power or control or prominence. He is still the Most High, but he has chosen to dwell in a tabernacle, a temporary dwelling place. So the tabernacle became the temple. The temple became Jesus. Always remember the words tabernacle and temple refer to a dwelling or God, where God comes to meet man. So where God temporarily dwells. So he dwelt in the tabernacle, then he dwelt temporarily in the temple while simultaneously ruling the universe, okay? It's a metaphor, it's a picture. His presence was there, but his presence was pervasive in the entire universe. He never left his heavenly throne. But then Jesus came, God in a body, and said, I'm the temple. And he drove the money changers out of the physical temple. He said, tear this temple down and I'll rebuild it in 3 days. He's talking about this very week, Passion Week, his death, his resurrection. But then he going forward in the New Testament, Paul instructed us that we are the temple, that Jesus said, I'll send you the Comforter, okay? He prayed in John 17 that God, that as I am in you, that they, believers, would be in us and us in them, I in them. So suddenly man becomes the dwelling place of God. Man becomes the tabernacle or the temple, those of us who believe. So here's to me what is so powerful and so beautiful and so wonderful about this, okay? If you have trusted Jesus as your Savior, you are the temporary dwelling place of God. You are his temple right now. He is within you, which means this river of supply is within you. It means the Most High, this great, powerful, holy God is in you. And the work that Jesus did on the cross, if you remember that when Jesus was crucified, when he died, the veil of the temple, the veil that restricted man from coming into the Holy of Holies, that place that most represented the most concentrated presence and power and holiness of God. And the picture of that veil separating was God basically saying, no one can come into my presence. I'm going to dwell among you, but we're separated. We're separated. By what? By sin, okay? And only the high priest, and only after certain ritual cleansing, and only dressed in white. I mean, there's all these pictures of you can only come into God's presence if you are perfect, if you're flawless, if you're sinless. Well, when Jesus hung on the cross and cried, it is finished, that veil of the temple going into the very presence of God was torn top to bottom. This was a huge, thick, heavy curtain. I mean, no man could have done this, but it just shredded right down the middle, and it was as though the curtain into God's office, into God's throne room was ripped open, and God's arms were extended to all of mankind, saying, you can now run into my presence. You can now run into this tabernacle or temple, and you can come boldly into my presence. And so what is so powerful about this is that because of Jesus, God is not just the Most High in his tabernacle somewhere out there someday. No, he is the Most High, but he is in this tabernacle, and I can approach him, and he invites me to enjoy every bit of his presence. Like I will enjoy it for all of eternity, I can enjoy it now by faith. And there's great assurance here, because in this troubling moment where these giant pieces of what we call life on planet Earth are shaking, it's as though our lives are experiencing an earthquake psychologically and in every way that our stability that we've known in this generation, it's rumbling, it's shaking, like he kind of describes earlier in the psalm. But he concludes, or in this portion, he draws the conclusion that there is a fixed knowledge. There's a fixed reality. There's a fragile reality, and there's a fixed reality. And the psalmist really, in a sense, is choosing, where will I let my emotions rest? If my emotions are resting, if my heart is resting on this fragile reality, then I'm just going to be tossed and troubled. But I'm going to let my emotions and my heart rest in this fixed reality that God is, and he is a very present help. And there is a someday city that we will rest forever in the presence of God. But until then, there is also the tabernacle of the Most High. And looking forward from David's vantage point, it would have meant Jesus and the work that Jesus was going to do. Now looking back on this from a New Testament church vantage point, we can see the fuller message of this and see that, wow, I can experience the presence of God right now because I am his tabernacle or his temple. And he is the Most High with me and in me, and I am in him, and I am secure because of that. I just love these thoughts. It encourages my heart so much, and I pray that it encourages yours as well.